are just at the hour. We have our card out. Today, word of the day brought to you by Audrey is may you know this moment. So
nice.
Yes. So for those that are new or just coming back, this is a watercolor class. We will go through painting step by step, one piece of the puzzle at a time. The ending project is posted on the screen. Hopefully you're able to see that. It is, I called it a Christmas cardinal. It's a winter cardinal or cardinals. It's a male, so they're very bright. They have the bright colors. And I think it'll be a fun project for us to do. If you decide after this you want to do a smaller version of this, you've got the drawing, so you can fold a card in half and make it a Christmas card. That would be a beautiful card to make. But at this point, we're just practicing painting this cardinal, and it's a little bit festive. It's got a bit of snow on the branches. So colors today will be red, blue, green, burnt umber, ochre for the beak, a little bit of white for the branches, and white in part of the eye. So we'll just get into art mode and just take some deep breaths in. And as we exhale, we'll just drop our shoulders down. So we'll take one deep breath in and just hold it at the top. And release. Shoulders down. Another deep breath in. Hold it at the top. And release. And one more deep breath in. And hold it and release. And just really drop those shoulders down. That just helps to we hold a lot of tension here, so it helps to release some of that. And any troubles or anything going on that's bothering you at this point, let's just set that aside if you're able to in your mind. In the parking lot, give yourself this gift of 1 hour of time. It will be it may be there when you're done the class. It may not be, whatever the trouble was, but hopefully this is 1 hour that you're giving yourself a bit of a break from that. So with that, we're going to start. We're not going to do the background first. We're actually going to do the cardinal first. So I know it's difficult to see mine. It's fairly light, but we're going to start. We'll paint this cardinal first. So let's start with the red. So we'll start at the top of the head, and I'm just going to do wet paint on dry. I'm using a cadmium red, and I'm just going to paint the bird. And I'm just, you can see I'm just doing short feathery strokes for that top of his head. Just coming down to the crown of the head. Coming around the body. And around the other side, around the outside. So he's sitting on that branch. And there is a spot where the eye and then the beak are. I'm just going to paint around the outside of that. I'm just painting around that spot. And then we're going to paint the rest red. We'll put some accent colors on after, and we'll put some lighter and darker. But at this point, we're just painting the bird. So not to worry too much about perfection. This is a bird. We're going to do some accents. We'll have some nice shadowing and shading where feathers are. But at this point, we'll just get the red on. We're just filling in the body. And I'm doing wet on dry. And if I go out of the lines, that's okay. It's a bit of tuft of feather. So I've just painted the body at this point. I'm not worried about any details. And then I'm also going to paint the tail feathers. They're underneath the branch, behind the branch. And again, I'm not worried about details. I'm just getting the color on. So you can see I paint fairly quickly, just putting the color on, not really worrying too much about the details at this point. All I want is the basic outline of the bird. And because we're going to go over this a couple of times, as I said, I'm not really, I've got a little bit of discoloration in here, just looks a little bit different, a little bit lighter and darker in spots. Some of my brush marks show. That's okay, because as we continue to work with the bird, when we get a little bit darker, which will occur by using the same color, and then we can add a little bit of white for some of the shading on the body, and we can do a little bit of lifting off. So I'll teach you how to do that if you don't know. So now I'm going to move to the branches, and I'm using burnt umber. And I'm just going to paint the branches in where they are, just with burnt umber. Again, this is wet paint on dry. I'm just painting the branches where they are. I'm not painting the little green pine needles, just the tree branch. And I'm not worried about the little bird's feet. I'm going right over. I'll be able to put those back on after. So I'm just giving a spot, a place for a bird to be sitting. So you can probably see in my branches, some are lighter, some are darker. It just depends on how much water was on the brush at the time or how much paint. I'm going to put green on the outsides of that, and I'm going to put snow on the branches, so I'm not worried about the difference of color. So I'm still allowing for time. As I do, I go around the picture to try and avoid some sections so that one doesn't run into the next. And that's why we haven't done any extra work on the bird's face at this point. Now for the pine needles, I'm just going to use the point of my brush, and I'm going to make some flicks with my brush. So I'm just using the point of my brush, touching down and then lifting off, and it's going to give me that effect. So I'm looking for pine needles in green. You can use sap green, hooker's green, light green. You can make an olivey green if you wish. I'm using a bright green. I know this green is going to dry lighter. When it dries, it will be lighter. So I've got the pencil marks on there already, and I'm just covering over the pencil marks. And if something happens and some of the pencil marks don't happen to get touched upon, once this is dry, I'll be able to go back on and erase those. But it is perfectly okay for pine needles to be, or for pine needles, for pencil marks to be in your watercolor. So in some places I've got smaller ones just on the end of a branch. In other places I've got longer ones down here by the tail feather. It's a little bit longer. It's like it's coming out from the back. From behind, and I've got some at the end of this branch. And if I pick up some of that brown, that's okay. And a little bit on this branch. So wherever those pencil marks were. And if you decide you want to add a few extra, that's okay. did that fairly quickly. I wasn't too concerned about it being, I'm just going over the lines that were there. Yep, and I think you'll find if you just go on, touch your brush, flick up, touch and flick up. As you do that, you'll find it'll be a softer, it'll just be a nice, natural progression of all of them. What happens sometimes is we get caught up on the details, and rather than worry about the details, we just pop that on there. The main character of this picture is the bird. This is background detail. The main focus of this picture is going to be the bird, so we're not so worried about the background details. Well, cardinals like to go to trees where there are red berries, and so we're going to give some red berries on our green here and there, and I'm just touching my brush, just putting on some berries here and there on my green evergreen tree. So I'm using the same red as on the cardinal. I'm going to put a few, just different places. Just to bring that color forward. So you put those berries where you like them. You can put as many or as few. Again, we are going to put snow on the branches, and some of those berries might even be covered over. So the main focus of this picture is the cardinal. So this is just background. Now there is a process to make some little red dots on your picture by using two brushes. So I'm using one brush, I'm holding it steady, and the other brush, I'm putting wet red paint on my brush. So I've got lots of red paint on my brush, and I'm going to go where my green boughs are. I'm just going to tap my one brush with the other one, and you can see I get a spray, little sprays of color of that red in and around the berries. So I'm putting quite a bit of water in my red paint. I'm tapping on my other brush, and I'm getting some flicks of red on my picture. So that's as well as the berries. So, and I'd like a little bit more up here, so I'm going to do it again, just a little bit more. So by doing that, if I do it on this piece of paper and you see it more clearly, I'm banging on one brush and the red paint is coming off. I'm not touching my canvas, I'm hitting the brush, and the color pops off onto my greenery. And Tanya, you're wondering, why am I doing the red? I'm doing red because this is a festive Christmas cardinal. So it just adds a little bit more to the detail in the picture. You'll see when we do the background colors, some of that red will actually turn a little bit purpley, and it'll be quite pretty. So we're just about at halftime. I'm going to read the meditation card, and then we'll get working on the actual bird. Today's card is May you know this moment. And before I read that, if you have a chance to, if you want to mix burnt umber with the red that you've been using, so burnt umber and cadmium red, but leave it on the red side, not so much brown. We're going to use this for the bird and for the tail feather. So may you know this moment. May you know this moment in all of its splendor. May you know that this moment is all that you have, so embrace its very essence. Let old stories and ideas and patterns that are no longer serving you drop away. Who are you today? And more importantly, who do you want to be in this moment? Savor this moment and live as the fullest expression of yourself at this moment. Joyful, angry, excited, sad, whatever is true in this moment. If it's uncomfortable, move through it. It will pass, and a new moment and opportunity will arrive. May you know this moment in all of its splendor, or whatever it is for you. So we've got burnt umber and cadmium red, which is the color I'm using. If you're using a different red, that's fine, but leave it on the red side. Not too much burnt umber. So if I'm mixing cadmium red and burnt umber, this is the color I want to come up with. So it's still red, but it has a deeper hue. So just a little bit deeper, but still on the red side. So it changes ever so slightly. And with that, we'll start to paint the tail feather of the bird. So we want that little back part, that little back feather to be deeper. And I want the divide between the feathers to be a darker color. So I'm doing that divide just down the center. I'm going to do a little tip on the front, just a little bit. And I'm going to trace up the back of the back feather. I'm going to start to give this body a little bit of dimension. This is the back part sitting on the bench, on the tree, the bench. And it's different than the front. So the bird is turning. And so there are almost two distinct parts to this bird. This is the front. So I'm rounding that curve, and this is the back. This is still using the burnt umber and red mix to give us that. We're still using the same red, but we're giving it a darker flavor. So I'm going up to the head, and I'm starting to pull down some of the feathers. I can come down around the outside, and then I'm going to start to fill in that body. And going in the same way feathers would go. So I'm going in a downward stroke. And I want to start to curl it inwards. because watercolor dries 20 to 30% lighter than when we put it on, I'm going to go back onto its head, and I'm going to use this new color, this brown and burnt umber mix. And I'm going, if I miss some spots, or if there's lighter and darker variations on his head, I'm okay with that. So you can see it's not perfectly even. That's okay. And I keep going back and making new little puddles because I didn't make enough in the first place. So I'm making a new little puddle of burnt umber and red. So if they're varying in colors, that's okay. And I'm going to bring this color down the front and underneath that little white section I've left, and almost make like a little beard of red. So he's got a little space here that we're going to add some white in. And we're going to add a little bit of white in different places on the body. So we've got the white, and we're going to use the white on the body. So I'm just going to do some soft feathery look on one side of this bird. I'm going to do a little bit of soft feathery down type strokes for the behind the ear type strokes. Going to put a little bit of feathering down below. And lastly, for white on the bird, I'm just going to add just a little bit of definition on the one feather, just lightening it up on the tail. I want that to be a really soft transition from red into white. So if I need to add a little bit of red just to soften that up, I can come back and just the softest version. You just want that to really, it's sort of blending in with the bird and the feathers. And while I've got this white out, I'm going to go ahead and create that snow color covering on the branches. So I'm not filling the whole branch. I still want some brown to show up, but I'm just putting some snow. It's just the look of snow. So something sitting on these branches, snowy day. I still want that brown to show up, so I'm not doing a complete stroke on all of them. Just want just that look of a snowy day. Sometimes it covers the whole branch, and sometimes the bottom's still showing. And if you've got your branches done, we're going to move to the color ochre, and we're going to paint in the beak. And then we'll paint that area around the beak. So don't worry about the eye. We will come back and we will recapture that eye.
What color are you using now?
So I'm using black, and I'm still, again, it's wet on dry, so I'm going around the beak, and I'm filling in all around the outside in black. So I'm taking that black just a little bit farther than the line was. So I want to leave room for that eye. And I have two different colors white. I have titanium white and I have Chinese white. But I do, of the two, I prefer the Chinese white. It's whiter than the titanium. But I like to practice sometimes before I hit my canvas. So if I'm looking at black and I want to make a very fine line, I practice on another piece of paper or something else before I hit my canvas. So I just keep going until I get as fine a line as possible. And I just want the line of that beak. And a couple of little nostril holes at the top. And we'll give this bird some feet, the little claws, 3 little claws to hang on. So that's just 3 little claws hanging on to the branch on the one side and 3 on the other. And that's just in ochre. And if they dry lighter than you want, once it's dry, which will only take a second because it's just a little spot, then you can go back and touch it up again. And just a reminder, this is just a piece of paper, unless you're using a canvas. It's just a canvas. It's not life altering, not life threatening. Could be life altering. That's up to you, but it's not life threatening. So release your death grip or hanging on for dear life with your paintbrush. Take a deep breath in and drop those shoulders. And before we do the eye, we're not going to do the eye yet. So we have the whole bird done. He's just missing an eye at this point. He's got some nice blended colors. I'm going to go into my blue. And I think I'll use cobalt blue. It's a sky blue. And I'm putting sky blue fairly wet on my brush. So this is my color, sky blue, fairly wet, so you can see. And I'm going to start from the bird out, and I'm going to brush away from the bird with my brush with my color. So I'm going away from the bird. I can go fairly close. I can go right to the bird if I want to. But I'm not filling all of the detail in the background. I'm only giving the look of sky in the background. So I'm going right over some of those berries and some of that red. I'm just going all the way around fairly loosely. Don't have to do it as fast as I do. I just I enjoy to just let things go and see where they flow. If I hit the branches, that's beautiful. If the green starts to run or any of the red starts to run in there as well, that's okay. So you can see if I hold it close, some of the places are starting to run a little bit together where the red, where the red has hit on some, or the blue has hit on some of that red. It's actually got a little bit of a purple hue, which is very pretty. So if I want that white covered up, I can just touch with my brush. and move that color inside. If some is lighter or darker and I want to adjust that at this point, I can just add some water to my brush and just brush it. Because it's so fluid and there's not any definite definition to where I put the blue, it's not every inch of sky. It gives that look of a wild bird in nature. If I want to give a little bit more definition to the outside, the belly of the bird, I can add a little bit more fresh color on the outside. If I want, you don't have to. It just defines a little more. And chances are, once you have that blue outline or background done, the black in the eye will be dry, and we can do an eye. We've got a white eye, which isn't completely finished yet because I do want to put a little black mark in the center of that as well. But I'll need to let that dry for a minute. And while it's drying, I can go back and I can put a little bit more detail on the bird or update some of my colors. I've got a little bit of blue that's fallen into my tail feather. It's okay. Touch it up with red. I also think that adds to the picture. So it's up to you if you want to add a few more details while we're just waiting for that eye to dry. If you want to darken up part of its top feathers, add a little bit more feathery look, it's up to you. I'm still giving that white of that eye another minute to dry. So I'm going to decide where am I going to put my artist signature, and I like to add it as part of the picture. So I'm putting it in where the leaf or the branches are. And I'm going to trust that my eye is dry. And so I'm just going to add that little bit of black. Just a little bit of black in that eye. So we've done a number of pictures where we've done the background first and then put the picture over top. This is where we've done the foreground first and then put the picture or the background on after. So there's different ways of doing it, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I think in this particular example, this picture, it works. Well, thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that today. And that's what you can do in 1 hour, you see? There you go.